Welcome back to another edition of the Nothing for Nothing Leaves Nothing podcast. I am your host, Lewis, and today's topic, we're going to talk about growth. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the podcast. And like I said, today's topic, we're going to talk about growth. So let's look up what the meaning of growth is. So, according to the Oxford Language Dictionary, growth is a process of increasing in physical size. That's one version. And then the other version is the process of developing or maturing physically, mentally, and spiritually. Right? So let's focus on that particular definition. So the reason we decided to do an episode on growth is because as you go through life and you experience different things, it helps you grow. Right? So when you grow, you want to grow to better yourself, to be a better person, and just to be an overall better individual. And when you look at your growth, you look at the key points in your life that would prompt you to grow. Things that would contribute to you growing into a way where you feel like it's a benefit to yourself and to obviously people around you. So starting when it comes to a person's general overall growth, I believe it starts with the spiritual first. You have to get yourself right with the man upstairs. If you are a believer, obviously, if you're not, then your viewpoint is going to be a little bit different. But if that's your core and your base, obviously everything that you do in life and how you go through life is based off of, you from a spiritual standpoint, right? Having a connection with God and understanding the things that you do that are correct, the things that you do that are wrong, but also understanding that we are not perfect beings and God knows we're not perfect beings. So as you go through, you're going to stumble, you're going to have issues, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to make bad judgment calls at different points in time in your life. However, even though that is the case, if you stay rooted in your core values from a spiritual standpoint, then you should have a good moral compass to be able to make right decisions at different points in time. The one thing about being a spiritual person and understanding God and how that piece works is understanding that as you go through life and you make mistakes and things happen, He knows that you're going to make mistakes and stumble. But the thing that people will fail to realize is you have to be able to humble yourself and say, yeah, I made a mistake. Especially when you're dealing with the higher power, the man, the creator. And understanding that, okay, yes, Lord, I made a mistake here. Say a prayer, you're saying your prayers and talking to Him and communicating with Him and having an understanding of Him communicating back with you in different ways through things that you see in life, things you experience. And just spending time with Him. The more you spend time with Him, the closer you are, the more you are able to hear Him and kind of see where He's there to guide you through those difficult situations. That's spiritual growth from my perspective and my standpoint. People may agree, may disagree, but that's how I look at it, right? So that's one aspect. Then you have aspects of interactions with people, whether friends, family, people you may be in relationships with or whatever. From those experiences that you have, they also allow you to grow. Now, as you're experiencing things in life and you're learning new things and you are around different situations, all these situations prompt you or should prompt you to grow in some kind of way. A lot of times things that happen to people end up stumping their growth because, an event happened and they might have been on one trajectory and then something happens and it's kind of like somebody pressing the brakes on everything that you got going on. But people have to understand and have the wherewithal to be like, okay, what can I get out of this? As bad as the situation may be, what can I get out of this? What can I learn from this? How can I be better? And a lot of times I think people run into issues and situations where they're always looking at the people around them and being like, oh, this person's the problem, or this is what the situation is, or this is what's causing an issue. And a lot of times people don't do a lot of a lot of self-reflecting. Self-reflecting is key to being able to grow, because if you can't realize something in yourself, and there might be other people around you that's seeing it and they might be talking to you about it, like, hey man, look, your attitude is messed up, or, the way your approach to things is a little off, you might want to tweak or make an adjustment here. And some people get steadfast and stuck in their ways and they refuse to do that. And by refusing to do that, you don't allow yourself to grow. So you end up very stagnant and stuck in a place where you're kind of just stuck in limbo. as opposed to a person that has self-awareness, that has an understanding, and is able to take a step back, remove themselves from a situation, look at a situation in totality, from top to bottom, right to left, around the circle and all that kind of stuff, to be able to realize and see the things that were right in the situation and things that were wrong. A lot of times as you're going through, and I'll say in life, like, you might be working a job when you're doing a certain task, a certain thing, and that's kind of what you do when you're doing that. But as you're sitting there, you sitting there like, man, some people, not all people that are looking to always improve themselves, are sitting there as like, what can I do to be better? How can I be better? How can I do this job better? How can I just improve on my current situation? And when you sit there and you look at that, like I said, that's a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of know-how to be like, okay, I might have a goal to accomplish something. How are the things that are around me, the things that's going on in this particular time, going to help me accomplish that goal? That's that self-reflecting. So you're looking at your situation and determining the factor of how can we make changes, but not just make any change, but make wholesale changes that are an improvement on what you currently have or what's currently going on. And it's a great thing to do in everything, whether, like I said, it's from a work standpoint, whether it's going to school, if you're currently in school, working as a parent, growing as a parent is key. It's another factor. Being a father, it's a constant. You don't have all the answers, and you never will have all the answers. So you're constantly growing and evolving with your child as your child develops, and they continue to grow and become their own person, from a baby to a toddler to getting into being a young kid, and then teenage years and all that kind of stuff. As they continue to age up, there's growth there, right? They continue to grow. They're constantly growing. So you have to be on the same page as a parent, to where you're constantly growing. You're constantly looking at the things that you're doing, situations that you dealt with, and how you handle those situations. And as a parent, trust me knowing, you don't always get it right, but you do your best based off of the information that you have and the current status that you're in. So you always want to be able to provide some kind of safe environment for your child and be able to have those interactions with your child. And that's a part of growth, right? Understanding your status as a parent, your viewpoints as a parent, and how those coincide with what you're doing in your overall life and what life you're trying to set up for your child. So there's another phase of growth, right? Growing as a parent. I talked about the spiritual piece from an individual standpoint. So that's also a place where you start and grow. And I think people have to take the time to be able to, one, especially in today's world and climate, be able to take constructive criticism and not take everything as an attack or somebody trying to put you down or somebody's trying to do something wrong to you. I talked about my previous podcast when I talked about thoughts and how people with disabilities are mistreated because of their difference. And you think about that, because of their disabilities at times might not be able to process somebody giving them constructive criticism, if it is constructive like it's supposed to be. And it might cause them to be, take them off their track, of focus or whatever. But then if you're a person where you have all your faculties in order and things of that nature and stuff like that, and if somebody gives you constructive criticism, a lot of times people end up taking that as somebody has an issue with you or somebody just trying to put you down. If you're smart, even things that are said to you that are negative, you can pull something from that. And the reason I say that is because even though people may say things negative to you, there can always be some semblance of truth there. Not all the time, but at times there can be some semblance of truth there, especially if it's coming from, like, if you're in a relationship with somebody saying something, and you're in a relationship with somebody say something to you negative in that relationship, you're going to be like, no, right? It's met with vitriol. But if you take a step back and remove yourself from the situation over it, and you look at it and examine it, you're like, okay, there might be some truth there. From a friendship, you have friends and stuff that people have friends have been friends with people for years and run into the same notion where a friend might say something to you and you're like, nah. But if that's a friend that's truly a friend, or somebody that's really, really close to you, they're going to give you the real, right? They're going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, being factual, holding you accountable for the things going on. And by somebody holding you accountable and people holding you accountable in your life, it allows you to grow. And it allows you to grow in a good way, because the stuff that you're hearing is stuff that's beneficial to you, even if it's from a negative aspect, right? Or you might take it as a negative aspect. It still allows you to grow because it gives you a perspective other than your own. A lot of times people stay stuck in their own little bubble, and that's what they focus on. And some people that do it because they're very driven, they have a one-track mind, and that's how they're rolling. And a lot of times when people do that, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when people do that, you kind of isolate yourself from people. And when you isolate yourself from people, that's where you end up, kind of missing the boat and not being fully aware of the stuff going on around you. So like, you might have somebody that becomes ultra super successful, but along the way, they kind of shun themselves from people. So their only mindset and perspective that they know is their own. So they feel like everything that they do and every decision that they make is always the right one. And sometimes it's not. The way they interact with people is going to be off because they're not constantly having those interactions or genuine interactions. Like you hear about people talking about having people surrounding themselves with yes people. How do you grow if you have nothing but yes people around you? Now, if you're self-aware to know that, okay, these people are around just for whatever status, and this just usually goes in line with people, that have an excess amount of money, success, fame, or whatever. And you have those people around you that are yes people. And it's like, whatever you do, they're like, yeah, man, that's great. Yeah, that's a great idea. As opposed to having somebody around you that's like, hey, man, that might not be the best decision. And then they can tell you or give you an explanation of why that might not be the best decision. And you get it with family members too. You have certain family members that you have that are like, like they talk about when people have mentors and things of that nature, people that kind of help guide you through as you're going through life. And you want those people around because that's stuff that's all helps you grow. It helps you understand different aspects of life, different aspects of yourself. So you're not in this loop of, yep, I'm rock and rolling the way it is, and we gonna keep it moving, as opposed to having somebody to be like, hey man, you might want to look at this, or hey man, you might want to make an adjustment here, or hey girl, you might want to look at this differently, or hey girl, you might want to tweak this, or whatever the situation may be. And all that stuff allows you to grow, and to be able to grow and to be able to watch your progress or growth. It's like growth when it talks about from a physical standpoint, right? People like, oh, I'm trying to grow from a physical standpoint. So that means you have to eat right, you have to exercise, you have to diet, or I wouldn't say diet because diet is kind of a short-term thing, but you have to change your lifestyle from the way that you're eating to be able to allow your body to grow. Like you have to feed your body certain nutrients and certain things and do certain things to it for it to grow and transition and transform into what you're trying to get to, whether it's growing muscle, losing weight, or whatever the situation may be. And then you think about just overall growth when you talk about growing from a mental standpoint, from health standpoint. Like there's so many aspects of growth that relate to just life as a whole. And it's like some people, I think, at times miss that boat. And when they miss the boat, they end up stuck kind of sitting out in limbo, trying to figure out what's going on, how they're going to do stuff, how they're living their life, the decisions they're going to make, and so forth. And all that stuff has a trickle-down effect to, different relationships you get in, jobs you may pick, how your interactions are at work, how your interactions are in your regular life. Like, all that stuff plays a part. And if you're not taking the time to examine yourself or take that step back to have the self-awareness to look at things from yourself, it kind of leaves you kind of stuck out there. I'll use for an example, we just had an election. And obviously everybody in the country is going crazy. If you're on this side, people saying stuff. If you're on this side, people saying whatever. But think about the election, right? So you had one person win, one person lost. Okay. So the person that won, they pretty much like, hey man, I won. I'm good. But a smart person in that situation would be like, okay, yeah, we won, but let's look at how we won and kind of focus on some good aspects from that and use that to carry over. Just like the person that lost can sit there and be like, okay, I lost, but why did I lose? And then break it down. Like, they might have missteps here, whatever the situation may be. But that's just an example of how you can take situations and take a situation and be like, okay, you can go two different ways with both situations. You can take it as a positive and something to expound upon, or you can take it and be comfortable with the status quo and just let it ride, and vice versa. You can take a loss and be like, man, okay, we got to do stuff to get better, and you're good. Or you can take it as, we lost. I guess this lost cause. It is what it is, and keep it moving. And you see it every day, like literally see it every day. Just how people are living, how people are doing things, how people are moving, and it's like people have, I don't know if it's a lack of drive that goes into it, because people just get comfortable where they're at. And I've seen people get comfortable to where they're at, and then they still blame everybody for everything going on around them. And it's like, that's not people's fault. If your relationship failed, for example, you have to take a step back and look at not just the person that you was in a relationship with, but you got to look at yourself too. If you're working a job and you're like, man, I'm not getting nothing from this job, you got to take a step back and look, are you putting anything into the job? You know, if you have family members that you're like, man, I can't deal with these people, man, this and third. And it's like, okay, well, you got to look. Is it them or is it you? In every aspect, in every situation of a relationship, whether it's a person that you're dating, a work relationship, whether a family relationship, just a relationship with things that you have going on in your life. Like, sometimes you have to do, that's where that growth comes in. We have to take a step back and just look. I'm like, all right, let's look at the full picture. Can you look at the full picture? I know for myself, like, man, the past couple years it's been a mess, right? And the reason I say it's been a mess because there's been so much stuff going on from a personal standpoint. But even with stuff going on from a personal standpoint, my mindset is, I made that decision to take a step back, look at some stuff, and I'm like, okay, I need to improve some aspects of my life, whether from health standpoint being one, a mental standpoint being two. So, you know, getting yourself mentally good and staying mentally good and keeping yourself rocking and rolling. Like I said, from a spiritual standpoint, you know, reestablishing that and keeping myself rooted there. And then from an educational standpoint, growing in that aspect. I made the decision to go back to school because one of the main reasons were, okay, from doing an examination and looking at things in my life and things going on, okay, from a job perspective, I applied to jobs because of my experience, and my experience alone, I should be able to get any job. And that's not being arrogant and cocky. That's stating the fact based off of the stuff I've been told from people doing recruiting and doing these hiring processes. And then I might get through the first round, second round, you know, interviews going great because you have to be able to interview. You know, that's part of it too. But then when they get down to making the final decision, you know, if you got a person that's neck and neck, you know, two people that's neck and neck, you break out the fine tune comb and you start combing through. Okay, this person has this person has this. Okay, they're cool. They're similar there. And then for me, my lack was I didn't have my degree. So I had to make that realization, like, okay, I have all the experience to be able to do the job that I'm applying for. However, that little piece of paper for a lot of people is key because to them that puts you in a different category, in a different establishment or whatever. And yeah, it can be frustrating and things of that nature. Like before I got the job I currently have now, I applied for a job, went through interviews, went to the facility, toured it. They was like, what's your plan for fixing this? You know, how would you attack this situation? How would you improve in this situation? How would you overall bring improvement to the company? Went through, did all that, did my spiel or whatever. The person that was running the site was like, man, like, I wish I can get you this, how soon can you start? I was like, I can start right now. You know, and you're going through the process, and what happened? 2 days, about 4 days later, get the call from their hiring department, was like, hey, they're going to go with a different candidate, blah, blah, blah. And I asked her, and I was like, well, could you tell me why? Because if you lose out on a job, you kind of want to know what, did you miss something? Was there a miscue? So you have an understanding going into the next situation, growth, understanding what didn't work in this particular situation that you could potentially apply to another situation. And then she was like, yeah, they wanted a person with a degree. So the person that they picked, might have been, I believe the person was like maybe fresh out of school, been out of school, maybe, shorter length of time, whatever, but that's the person they wanted to go with. Now, in my head, I could be pissed off and upset about it. Like, man, that's messed up, man. Like, y'all picked this person. This person don't know his butt from his elbow. But I'm not the one making the decision. And see, that's the difference. You having that understanding, like, okay, it ain't my name on the building. I'm not the one calling the shots. So you are at the mercy of, the people that you're trying to get, that you're seeking employment from, that you're trying to, get them to pay you for your services. And that's just the way it works. But I could have took that and been like, man, they just don't want to hire me because I'm black. Right? And because people do that. They just they lean on, racist things and stuff like that to justify a point or to prove a point. And the realization is you just weren't qualified to their standard. You might not agree, but that's the fact. So this is where the growth comes in. You take a step back and it's like, okay, I have all this experience. I have all this knowledge. That little piece of paper holds a lot of weight. Okay, how do I improve on the situation? Go get the piece of paper. Right, wrong, and different. Might not agree with it, might not want to, but if that's what you need to do to be able to set yourself up for success, cool. So when I took that step back and examined, I'm like, okay, cool, get my degree. And then as I started going through that process of figuring that out, I'm like, okay, do I just want to get this part and stop there, or do I want to increase on it? I want to increase on it. So if you're going to do it, you go full tilt, all in. So obviously my plan is I'll finish with my degree, I believe, in June of next year, God willing. And I say God willing, meaning, I'm alive and well type deal. And once that's done, I'm going to probably roll straight into a master's program in the same particular field. Right. So you think about that and it's like, okay, cool. What happened? You had a situation where, yes, I'm currently employed, working, but I saw a situation where there was a job there from a financial standpoint would have been very, very beneficial and would have been, in a long-term equation, it would have been great. You knew things would have been taken care of or whatever. But because that didn't go through on that end, okay, now it prompts me to be like, okay, this is where I need to go. This is what needs to happen. This is how we need to make an adjustment. And that's what I decided to do. And I've been doing it. Started school in January. Been going straight forward since. No breaks, no stops. Just class after class after class after class after class. And maintaining a good GPA in the process, if I must say so myself. But like I said, those are the things where that's a situation where you see, kind of like you see a stop gate. And you have to take that step back and, okay, how can I grow from this and make this situation become beneficial to me? It was a motivation to get that extra kick in the butt to get back into school and get the degree knocked out. So it's things like that, man. Like I said, that self-realization, like, okay, I could have been sat on, man, I was in the military for this long. I got this experience from the military. I got this experience from working jobs. After I got out the military, man, that's what I need to lean on. People need to hire me. No, that doesn't work, man. That's not a smart decision. So to make smart decisions, you have to examine everything from top to bottom so you can make the proper decisions to be able to go forward. And that's growth. That's like the key point of growth. You're doing things to improve and get better. And as you know, when you go through life, nothing is set in stone. So you should be everyone should be constantly looking to grow and find ways to improve. You should constantly be seeking self-improvement, constantly seeking a way to make yourself better at work, constantly seeking improvement to make yourself, from a spiritual standpoint, right, grow closer to God, especially in the way with the way the world is today, where stuff is just all over the place. And there's a lot of, I wouldn't say, well, I would say this, and like I said, it's my opinion, so hence my podcast. But I would say, like, there's a lot of self-hate out there. A lot of people beat themselves down because for whatever situation, whether the circumstance that they're in or whatever, and people get so stuck and stagnant in this thing, like, nobody want to help me, people want to keep me down, there's nothing out there for me. And it's like, dude, a lot of times, man, sometimes people might need a hand, might need an assisted hand to get stuff rolling, but at the same time, you have to have that self-drive to propel yourself and get yourself out there to make the moves that you need to make and make the decisions that you need to make. Everybody doesn't need to be there to assist you through. If you want it, you're going to go get it. If you don't want it, you're not going to have it. And that's just the way it breaks down. It shouldn't be a pity party when things are not going your way. Yes, okay, you have a moment like, oh man, this sucks. Okay, cool. But what are you doing to improve? What are you doing to make yourself better? What are you doing to set yourself apart from the next person? In anything. Anything. What are you doing to be that person that stands out? That's the person that people look at and say, okay, yeah, I want that person. Or, hey, I can rely on that person. Or, yeah, this is the person we need to have. Or, hey, this is somebody I want to model myself after. This is somebody that's doing stuff. Like, it tripped me out the other day when I went to AutoZone to go pick up some car stuff. I'm a car nut. I like working on cars. Probably gonna have a podcast about cars in the near future, but I digress. So I was there and I seen a kid. He had to be probably early 20s, and he was just standing there looking at his car. So I get out and I'm like, hey, bro, you good? Like, what's going on? And he was like, man, I'm trying to find my air filter. And in my head, I'm like, bro, that's like the easiest thing I find on a car. But I say that because when you don't have people around you to show you stuff and kind of guide you through certain things, you will never know. So me being a car guy, a lot of that stuff came from being around my dad. My dad was constantly working on a car here or doing something with a car here and there or whatever. Him and his buddies at different points in time. So that's where my spark came from. So I was around it and I asked questions. And then because of being a car nut, I connected myself with different people at different points in my life that did car stuff. So my dad was the spark. Cool. I wanted to know more about it and grow in it. Hence the growth piece. And that's what I did to continue with. Now in this situation, it tripped me out because it was, it's one of those things where like you look at it and it's like, where's the normalcy came? Like what happened to, folks having that? Now, I don't know the kid situation. This is just going off of just a small situation there. Well, I was like, man, how does somebody not know the basic stuff about a car? But if nobody tells you, you're not going to know. If you don't have nobody around you to provide you with certain information, you can't grow in a particular area because you don't know. And that's what I'm getting at. If you putting two and two together. That lack of information or lack of knowledge that he had about a particular situation more than likely came from the fact that he had nobody around him to give him that information. So like I said, he can't grow in that aspect of having knowledge about basic maintenance stuff on a vehicle because nobody was there to tell him. Now he could take it upon himself after experience what he experienced and be like, okay, I might need to get some information on this particular thing. That ties into right what I'm talking about when I'm talking about growth. But on the other flip side of that too, he can have that standpoint, but then he can also turn around and say, okay, cool, I need to be around some people that can give me this information. So you're like, okay, cool. You got a mentor or whatever, you can rock and roll. So like I said, it's funny how like when you look at it and break it down, it all ties together. But like I said, people have an ability to, like I said, just take that step back and look at themselves and be like, okay, yeah, I need to make a move here. I got friends that I talked to one of my military buddies like not too long ago, and I was talking to him. I was like, "Yo, man, like I hadn't talked to him in a while." I was like, "Man, how's things going?" He's like, "Man, I'm making moves for this and this and this." And I'm like, "Bro, you just making all the moves. Like you got some good progress going on." He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just trying to grow." And literally, we started laughing about it. I said, "You know what, man? I'm gonna do a podcast on that." So shout out to my boy Thompson. That was a pickup for helping brother get a podcast episode. But like, we went from being in the military to making the transition out. And a lot of times when people transition out, whether you do 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, some people transition out and then they're stuck in this thing like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Or, a lot of times people look for the hookup. And ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Like if you got a buddy that's in a position that can put you on and get you rocking and rolling, by all means, use your resources. But it shouldn't be something where it's like you're dependent on it to the point where you're like, if you don't get it now, you pissed off at your buddy because you're like, yeah, man, you didn't even hook me up, man, you just left me out there. And it's like, no, dude, like you got to go get your own. Like I can put a word in, but I'm not the decision, especially if they're not a decision maker. They can put a word in, but it's ultimately up to you to do your interview process or whatever and so forth to be able to get to that point. And if it don't work out, take a step back and look at the areas where you need to grow in, whether it's from, maybe you need to check your resume. Maybe you need to check how you do interviews or, whatever your approach is. Everything around you, growth to me is a constant thing. Constant. Every aspect of your life, everything that you're doing, there are some aspects of it where you have to continue to improve to get better. And it might be a constant improvement as you go through life, because life is ever changing. So you should be ever evolving to the stuff going on in life and going on around you. You should never be in a situation where you're stuck and stagnant. Now, sometimes it happens. And when it happens, it could be circumstantial, right? It might be a situation where, because of the way things are going on at that particular moment in time, you just physically can't get to that next level at that particular point in time. That happens. Don't let it kill you, because if your mindset is still like, okay, yes, I'm stuck here at this time because I have to get through this to be able to get to this next point, that's still growth. You're still growing. And the reason you're still growing is because you have the mental capacity to know that, okay, I might be stuck here currently, but this is not where I'm going to stay. I'm still going to make the improvement. As soon as this window opens, I'm jumping right through it. That's a win. That is a major win. So regardless of what's going on, if you have it in you from a mental standpoint to be like, okay, I want to be better. I'm going to be better. Start with God. Keep God first, because obviously that's your guiding light, your moral compass to keep you straight and on the right to get narrow. Also understanding that as, you know, believers in the big man upstairs and, you know, followers of Jesus Christ, you know that you're going to stumble. Even trying to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, you're going to stumble. So be able to take a step back. Here it is again, talking about step back. Take a step back, pray, repent, because repenting is constant. And the reason it's constant is because we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes and make errors as human beings in this world. So obviously when you have a hiccup from a spiritual standpoint that takes you off your moral compass or your moral path, you take a step back and you talk to God and say, hey, I messed up. Guide me through. And He will guide you through, so you won't have any issues. But yeah, man, it's like you just got to put that time and put that work in, you know, to improve yourself and keep yourself on that path to where you're like, all right, cool. We are rocking and rolling. We got this. We gonna get it done. And that's what you do from spiritual standpoint, work, just overall parents, from my parents out there, like, keep doing what you're doing. If you're rocking and rolling, keep growing, keep improving, because ultimately when you become a parent, and I will say this because for me, I know it's been true for me. When you become a parent, your mindset shifts. You're no longer thinking about yourself. Everything that you do and every decision you make is to benefit your child in whatever way, shape, or form. Like I said, when I talk about me and, you know, wanting to do things to better my career from a work standpoint, obviously the big piece of that is the financial piece. Well, why is that? I have a daughter. So my thing is, and it's been that way since she was born, she don't want for anything. Between her mother and I, we take care of everything she need. And it can be down to a point where we down to our last little bit of chump change. She will never know the difference. Never know the difference. And it's a constant improvement. I'll say, and this is just sharing some real stuff. So like recently from financial standpoint, stuff got a little tight. And for me, the worst thing that I can ever do for my daughter is, or every worst situation I can ever have with my child is for her to ask for something simple and minute and I can't give it to her. Like, it just jacks me all up. So recently had a week, you know, waiting for the check, you know, like we all do from time to time when stuff get crazy, waiting on the check to come, and took her to go to the store to get something, got her one thing. She picked up an item, I think it was a bag of chips, right? So, oh, one of these, couldn't get it. Crush me. So what happened? Self-evaluation. Took a step back and was like, all right, cool. I don't ever want that to happen again. Ever. And so it's like, okay, I need to tighten some stuff up. I was already looking at taking care of stuff anyway and readjusting some aspects from a financial standpoint. But that was like that extra kick in the gut. Like, man, really? Can't even do that? Nah, that's not cool. Not gonna work. Now, my daughter don't know the difference. She got what she needed and she was good to rock and roll. But for me, the fact that I had to tell her no for something so minute killed me. All right, we got to lock. So, like I said, growth. Got to lock this up. We got to make sure we got to steady the ship. So that's what I'm talking about. Growth. That small situation right there where most people are like, man, it's not that big of a deal. She didn't need it. Like, it's whatever. No, for me, that's big because it's a standard that I have for myself being a father and taking care of my daughter that drives and motivates me to do a lot of the stuff that I do to be able to make sure she's taken care of and she has the stuff that she needs. So For my fathers out there that's doing the same, grinding, make sure you take care of your kids. Kudos to you, especially if you are a black man and you were doing it. Double kudos to you, because we do get a bad rap as being crappy fathers. And there are some crappy dudes out there that don't take care of their kids. But to all my boys out there that do, kudos to you, and keep rocking and rolling. For the ladies out there that's doing the same, single moms and stuff like that, holding it down, y'all keep pushing, keep rocking and rolling. Y'all know what you need to do as a parent to take care of your child, and you keep doing that. And our kids will love us for it. So I say in closing, continue to grow, continue to expand, continue to set yourself up to be better, continue to set yourself up to provide good things to the world, and continue to focus on yourself, have self-awareness to know everything can be improved on, everything can grow, and everything can grow to be prosperous. So make sure you like, listen, subscribe, and be on the lookout for the next episode of the pod. Y'all have a happy Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and y'all stay easy. Holla at y'all later.